Welcome to another episode of One-on-One with Mitch Lafon. I am your host, Mitch Lafon. My guest this week, guitarist extraordinaire GEORGE Lynch, obviously having played in Dokken, Lynch Mob, and now a new project with Michael Sweet of Stryper called Sweet and Lynch. Their debut album, Only to Rise, comes out in January 2015. And to discuss George and all his exciting projects is Maor Appelbaum, mastering engineer who's worked with so many people. Halford, Faith No More, the new single, Motherfucker, and yes, the new album, Heaven and Earth. Good day, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good, good. So you've never had a chance to work with Lynch Mob or George or Dokken, have you?
Well, I did Dokken without George as
right.
The latest Dokken, Broken Bones.
Right.
And I got to kind of work on stuff that he played on as well. There were a few, there's like collaboration albums or there's albums that have like a feature guitar player and he played on as well. So I did some singles for a very talented guitar player by the name of Ethan Brosh or Ethan Brosh.
Right.
And he was a guest guitar player there as well.
When you master an album that is more sort of guitar focused, like you have with Yngwie Malmsteen, is it different than trying to master a full album, like a full band album, like a Halford thing? Are you trying to accentuate or polish up different things, or an album's an album and it's sort of one sort of mastering style fits all?
Well, every project is different. It's like, you get something that has a certain sound, you got to work with it, with what's there. You can't compare it to anything else. Everything is its own identity. If it's a guitar-driven album that is based on lead guitar, then you got to focus on that. You can't overlook that. You can't say, well, it's just like anything else. No, you can't. It has to be a focus there. And guitar tones need to come out really nice. You don't want to make it the opposite. You don't want to make the guitar sound less good. Now, sometimes it's an album that has a singer in it, but also a lot of leads.
Right.
You take that in consideration. When it's like when there's a part where you go to solo, you need to make sure that solo comes out right. You don't want to make it sound less good than the other instruments. So even though I only deal with the stereo track, I still have to make sure everything is well balanced and the aesthetics are there. So it features what's coming in there, and if it's a lead guitar based album, then that needs to be focused.
Right. Now the Sweet and Lynch album called Only to Rise is coming out on Frontiers Records in January. The label just announced that they've signed Operation Mindcrime, which features Jeff Tate. You worked on his last album, Frequency Unknown. How was it working with Jeff? I personally love him. I've interviewed him 15 or 20 times in my career. I just think he's fantastic. He at least he's always been very nice to me. How was it working on that album?
Well, I was in touch with them, on all the administrative side, and of course, I worked on it and I sent it to them, and they listened to it and approved it. It turned out. It was a very, easy collaboration.
Right.
And I got to see them live a few times after as well. The album had various guitar players in it, various drummers. There were different musicians in it. It was also an album that had, various musicians collaborating there.
Right.
It was that's the one called Frequency Unknown. It wasn't under it was under Jeff Tate's Queensryche. It wasn't Operation Mindcrime yet.
Yeah, that's coming up. I just bring it up because they just announced the signing of Jeff's Operation Mindcrime in the last week or so. Let's just get right back over to George. This month in December, he's got Lynch Mob, new album, Sun, Red Sun, that has Scott Coogan playing drums on it. Scott, of course, is on the road these days with Ace Frehley, and when he's not touring with Ace, he's doing the Blue Man Group thing. The great interview I had here with George, he talks about his time touring with OZZY Osbourne. He talks, of course, about the Sun Red Sun album, the Sweet Lynch album. But we also talk a little bit about Dokken, but not what you would think. It's not Don is bad or Don is this. It's a lot more interesting. So stick around and listen to that. Maor, why don't we sit back and listen to my interview with George?
Sure, let's do so.
Here is George Lynch. Good. So, pardon me?
Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, you too. Always a pleasure. So we're going to talk about the Sweet and Lynch Only to Rise project, and maybe we can get some questions in about Sun Red Sun as well.
Okay.
Sounds good. So let's just get started then with your work with Michael Sweet of Stryper. Was it a project that you and him thought of putting together, or was it the record company that approached you and said, "Hey, you guys should do something together"?
It was the label.
Okay.
It was really the brainchild of the label.
Okay, perfect. And when you approach a project like that, then how do you decide sort of what the focus is going to be? What's it going to sound like? How do you put the songs together?
Well, let's see. Quite honestly, there wasn't the kind of thinking that you think there would be involved.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, you find in this business that people do a lot of talking.
Right.
And not a lot of walking.
Yep.
And I'm sort of not a fan of that. I'm a fan of just, actually doing it, let the music do the talking. So, when I'm thinking about the idea of playing with Michael,
right.
I mean, I immediately, instinctively, almost unconsciously know what that would be, where I would fit in and what that music would sound like. So I go in and I write, I'm writing the music, he's writing the melodies and the lyrics. And, but we're not working together. We're working independently. So I have to write the music first. And so with him in mind and knowing what he does, I'm writing, And, not really thinking, I'm not taking direction from anyone. I'm just sort of going with my gut instinct. And that seemed to have worked.
You really did, because I've actually been listening to the album all afternoon, and I really think it's a home run. Your fan base is the Lynch Mob crowd and the Dokken crowd, and his is the Stryper crowd. Do you have any trepidations thinking, okay, we've got to make it sound like a Stryper record, or we've got to make it sound like a Dokken record?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
But having a singer like Michael affords me the opportunity to put myself in that Dokken-esque kind of writing mental space.
Right.
Where I would be if I was writing in a band, with Don, for instance, because, they don't sound the same, but they're in that same genre of singers, I would say, where they're, have clearer voices. It's, whatever style you would call Michael. I think maybe Don is in that same world.
Right. Do you get tired of all the Dokken questions at this point?
I just think they're kind of irrelevant in the world today. We're so far beyond that now that, who cares? Might be a few hangers on that care. And
yeah, because I share that sentiment.
Yeah, it's just last interview I just did a thing on it, and I was just like, oh boy.
Yeah, because
I tried to talk around it, and actually, not even around it, but maybe more to the point.
Right.
Meaning, I'm not really worried about the he said, she said stuff, but maybe more about the fundamental underlying dynamics that are happening and how that might apply to today. For instance, bands today. Younger guys are starting a band, and it's like, how are they putting the band together, nuts and bolts wise.
Right.
And you can learn lessons from the way other people have done things, There's a lot of different ways to put a band together,
Yeah, I agree. And it's just that it's been about 20 years, give or take. It's like 17 years or so since you've last been involved with the band. And it just seems to me, as I read interviews that you've given, it just seems ridiculous to ask the question. So I was just curious, how you reacted to that, because it's got to be sort of boring at some point to hear the same question for 15 years, right?
I guess. I mean, at the time when we were together, there was this actually concerted effort on the part of the record company publicist to promote this infighting angle of the band.
Really? Why?
That was by design. Because according to the publicist, they were very frustrated because we didn't have a hook. We didn't have anything for them to latch onto to talk about. They needed something. We didn't have anything image-wise or habit-wise, or we're just a band. Sort of nondescript.
Right. So,
we didn't have any huge personalities or anything. So.
Right. So I guess what you're saying, like, if you look at Kiss, Gene Simmons is larger than life, or Guns N' Roses, Axl is sort of larger than life, and because you guys were sort of more working class heroes, they wanted to manufacture some kind of, for the lack of a better word, sexy drama kind of thing going on that would get some press.
Exactly. Mm. And then, of course, if you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes truth in people's minds. So,
yeah.
And we got to the point where we believed it, or at least some factions of the band started believing their own hype.
Getting back though to current day Sweet and Lynch, the album, like I said, I've heard it. It sounds great. Is this the beginning of more work with Michael, or is this one and done, or are there tours, or is it like, hey, we'll just see what happens?
Just see what happens. I mean, I'm not saying no to anything. I'm open to touring. I'm open to another record.
Okay.
But it has to make sense, of course, for not just me but everybody else, and it's tough. It's tough without having Lynch Mob. It's a little easier to go out there. That's basically my touring band at this point.
Right.
We will be touring next year. But any of my other projects, including Sweet Lynch, it's tough because, they're all new bands and they're projects, and they're like with guys that are, need to be taken care of. We're not a 20s, we're not in our 20s. We're just a baby band. We can go out there and, live in a van and, and just tour around and live off fumes. I mean, we have to, it's just,
right. You have to make a living.
Sustain a project like that. Yeah, we have to make a living, exactly, and to pay for the project to move. It's just not that easy to put it out there and without resources. So I don't know. I mean, we are talking about, actually, there's been one interesting conversation we had with an agent is possibly putting Sweet and Lynch out with Lynch Mob.
Well, to me, that's the obvious choice, because musically you're not that far apart. Go ahead.
Right. I mean, almost, I think that what they were talking about was using a common band, putting it on one bus and that kind of thing. But and that's what I was talking about, where logistically it has to make sense financially to be able to do these kinds of things.
Yeah, and for you as the guitarist, it's probably not as difficult to do double gigs as opposed to a vocalist. Singing for 3 hours is just not doable. But playing guitar for 2.5, it's exhausting, but it's not, death-defying kind of thing.
Nah, that's not a problem. Yeah, I mean, dude, you do that anyways. I mean, you go play a gig, you do a sound check for at least an hour, then you warm up for at least an hour before the show, if not more, and then you'll play the show, and then if you're like on the bus or something, and then you just go pick up your acoustic guitar and you end up playing on the bus, all night. So, what's the difference if you're doing it on stage or something? Yeah, you're right. For a guitar player, it's not that hard, but for a singer, they can't do that.
Yeah, they can't. Now, you mentioned that Lynch Mob might tour next year, or you might do this package thing. Scott Coogan is or was your drummer. He's now doing the Ace Frehley thing. How does that affect what you're doing with Lynch Mob?
Yeah, Scott hasn't been in the band for a while. Scott is actually in Blue Man Group in Vegas.
Okay.
In addition to the Ace Frehley thing. And he's playing with Lita Ford as well. So he's been gone for a while. We're friends. Everything's cool, but he moved to Vegas and moved on. So,
but he's on the new Sun Red Sun EP.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, we finished up the record with him and Robbie. But that band is gone now. So Oni and I are in the midst of auditioning new guys.
Okay.
So we're work in progress.
Okay. And so what is the current status of Lynch Mob? Once you get the guys to come in and you fill out the band, other than this EP, will you start thinking about a new record and new music, or is it at this point just get out there and play some shows and we'll see what happens?
Well, we've already actually we're in the midst of finishing up a new record.
Okay.
Beyond Sun Red Sun. Yeah, it's been written, it's been recorded. Everything but the vocals have been recorded. Ironically, Brian Tichy on drums.
Okay.
Lynch. And we got Jeff Pilson on bass. We just finished that up night before last.
Okay.
And all the guitars are pretty much done. Just Oni's working on vocals, and that'll be coming out next spring on Frontier.
That's interesting that you mentioned Pilson, because the last album you did with him, as far as I remember, is the TNN album from 2012, and Brian Tichy played drums on most of the album, not all. Mick played on some. This is going to go out as Lynch Mob. It's not going to go out as TNN.
Yeah, no, it's a Lynch Mob record.
Okay.
They just played on it. They're not in the band.
Okay.
Jeff's not going to leave Foreigner, and
nor should he. I mean, he's doing brilliant work with them.
Right. Yeah. So, not that we wouldn't love to play together, in something, but life has conspired to keep us apart. So.
What are your thoughts of Jeff? I mean, he really is a great producer. He's a great lyricist, a great player, an incredibly nice guy. Would you like to get him back in a band and work with him and be in a touring place with him?
Good. That's all we talk about. I mean, when we get the chance to get together, I mean, it literally is, we only live a few miles from each other, and we both have studios. And when we're both home, we work together on projects, even if we don't have a project to work on. I mean, we love writing together and creating music together. We're of the same mind. We're like the two-headed, machine. We just go in there, and we've been doing that since early Dokken days, and we've had this sort of way we work together in this chemistry, and we read each other's thoughts. We don't even talk, and it just works. It's just so awesome. And, every time we work together, we have this kind of afterglow period where we're just sitting there listening to the stuff and going, damn, we should be playing together. Yeah, I know. God, I love you. I miss you. Why aren't we in a band together? Well, we know why, but, it's frustrating. It really is.
Well, we'll have to get you to join Foreigner.
Maybe Foreigner could hire me to be their guitar player. And then
sure.
Play together.
Mick Jones is not there very often. You should step in. I want to go back to one thing in the past that I've always found intriguing. Years ago, you gave an interview, roughly about 2012 or 2010, and you said bodybuilding was one of the silliest things I've ever done. Tell me a little bit about that. Were you all into the whole steroid thing, or was it just all natural? And why was it sort of a silly thing to have done to get in shape? I mean,
well, no, it definitely wasn't natural.
Okay.
You don't gain, you don't get like that naturally.
Okay.
It just doesn't happen. The human body doesn't do that.
Yeah, well, that's what I figured. But
no.
I don't want to accuse you of anything, right?
It does require. Don't get me wrong. It does still require a lot of hard work.
Right.
And then, lift like crazy and diet like crazy, and, it's an immense amount of work, but, yeah, I mean, it's not like steroids just do all the work for you. You still have to do a little bit of a stone soup thing, and maybe it's allowing stuff to happen, but you got to still put the work in, make that happen, so. But, it was, really an exercise in vanity,
right,
and sort of displacing more space.
Okay.
I did it for reasons that were quite personal. Actually, I went through a pretty hellacious divorce, and it just really helped me keep my sanity. So in that sense, I think that I had to do that just to preserve my sanity and remain intact and be able to, continue on doing my work and raise my kids and do what I had to do.
Right.
But I had some residual, health issues from doing that. So, I had a heart attack in the 90s. I had a failed kidney, half a kidney, over the last 5 or 6 years. I had back issues. I had the back surgery. I was in a wheelchair for a while. A lot of things that you could probably attribute to, all the overtraining and steroids.
Sure.
Yeah.
How are you physically these days, though? I mean, is your health sort of stabilized, or are you carrying around a lot of sort of hidden bumps and bruises that interfere with either your enjoyment of life or your ability to play or your ability to be on a stage for a long period, or you're just perfectly fine?
Well, I've always had this thing with live performances. I've had some sort of an issue, and I've never actually figured out what it is, where I had a tendency to just overheat and hyperventilate and pass out.
Wow.
And it's probably happened to me 10 times in my life.
Wow.
And it's very, very scary. Last time it actually happened was in Vegas at the Empire Club.
Mm-hmm.
This was many years ago. That I ended up in the strap, losing consciousness, ended up waking up strapped to a gurney in an ambulance with tubes down my throat, flatlined.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was, and I think I sort of figured it out. It's just I have to make sure that I dress very, with loose clothes, nothing that, holds in any heat. I got to remember to breathe, and I can't eat anything like 3 hours before I play. Heavy sound decibel levels and hot lights and no air in the room definitely make it harder. Humidity, that kind of thing. So I have to just be very conscious of my environment, decibel levels, and my personal regimen and what I do, consuming food or alcohol and things like that. So, I think I got a handle on it. But
sounds to me like you can't play in
other health, residual health things. I'm actually, I eat very healthy and I continue to work out. And for my age, I'm 60. I think I'm in fine shape, knock on wood, at least so far. And, just the natural slowing down process with age, is okay.
Wow, that's right. You're 60 now. I knew that, but it didn't occur to me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's kind of fucking with me too a little bit. Actually more than a little bit. I'm so sorry.
Because I have followed your career and the Dokken career, Lynch Mob since the first sort of MTV video, which what was that, 83, 84? I mean, whatever it was. Well, I guess I've gotten older too. So then let's go with this then.
Together.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll say thank you then for the last 30 years of music, because it's been a great soundtrack to my life. But then at some point, do you see yourself stopping? I mean, do you say, I really want to get on a stage in Texas at 65? Or do you say, yeah, you know what? Let me just go sit by the beach and enjoy my kids growing up and...
Well, no, I just think it's balanced. I mean, okay. I build guitars. That's something I do, that doesn't require me to go on the road and things like that. I love doing it. I have my own studio. I write and record here at home. I'm home.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's fine. And I can pick and choose if and when I want to go out. In other words, am I going to go out where I'm going to be driving a van, pulling a U-Haul trailer, doing, 9 shows in a row, driving 7 hours a night after every show, and rooming up with another guy in a shitty hotel room? No, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Right.
But, if the right thing comes along and the money's, worth it and the conditions are decent, then, I'll do that.
Yeah, why not? And I know you've been doing this all day, so I won't keep you much longer. Just, in 2014, does it still make sense for a guy like George or the guys in Dokken or Ford or any of these bands to still make new music? At this point, having been in the game 30 years, can't you just go out and play the clubs or the theaters and just mine the back catalog and just give them a night of greatest hits and say, thank you for the paycheck, I'm going home? Like, what inspires you or motivates you to say, I need new stuff?
That soundtrack that's spinning around in my head, that's been spinning around in my head since as long as I can remember,
right.
That, doesn't allow me to rest, I mean, I'm hearing it, and I want to just put it out so that it's established, so I can put it somewhere concrete where I can hear it, other people can hear it, and it's that ultimate guitar solo, it's that ultimate song, it's that ultimate groove, that thing that just brings you goosebumps and mesmerizes you and takes you to another place, and
right.
And it's almost like it's like almost the Platonic cave analogy, where the reality is it's almost the opposite of that, because the reality is never as great as what I imagine it could be,
Right. The art in the mind is never great as the art on the paper, right?
No, the art in the mind is greater than the art on the paper.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah.
That's what I tried to say. Maybe I said it all wrong, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, right. In other words, I've never been able to actually live up to what I'm sort of hearing. What I've ideally. So we keep chasing that dragon.
So I guess that leaves you sort of frustrated. Your next song is always going to be the greatest one, and then when you write the next one, it's always like, no, it's that one after. I'm almost there. So it's been 30 years of chasing that then.
It's really it's this game you have to play with yourself, and it's finding, it's you just keep finding ways to get closer. I mean, it's like when you hear things, you have to document them. You got to try to document things right away, in a way that you can remember, when you go back when you're actually writing, and then having control over all the elements so that it comes off the way you originally envisioned it.
Right.
And it's just chasing smoke. It's just so tricky because you can get sidetracked in so many different ways. And sometimes those sidetracks lead to other wonderful things. So, it's just this kind of wonderland mystery, it's like wilderness, you're out there discovering all these wonderful things while chasing this thing that you think you need or want, and you never attain it, but you find all these other things in the interim period,
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to be respectful of your time.
The idea is a catalyst for this journey.
Right.
That you need to go on, that you don't realize you need to go on, and that was really the whole point.
Yeah. And I know you've been doing this all day, so I want to be respectful of your time. I'll ask you this last question. Over the years, having been out of Dokken and with Lynch Mob, sometimes on, sometimes off, were you ever approached by a quote-unquote famous band to come and be their guitarist? Did a foreigner ever come to you and say, hey, come and be our guitarist, or a Guns N' Roses, or a Kiss, or a... Did anybody ever say, join us? And if yes, why didn't you?
The closest it came was OZZY, and that was in the 80s, and that was...
wow.
Didn't obviously happen. It kind of happened. I was touring, kind of touring around with them and rehearsing with them and kind of in the camp for about a month. And then found Jake and kicked me to the curb. That was okay. There was one other one. There's been a couple, actually. There was still very early on in the 70s, Phil Mogg from UFO.
Right.
And I were talking, and we met at Barney's Beanery in Hollywood, and why it didn't happen was because he was insisting that I I just be the guitar player. He wanted to build this band of other, like a super group kind of thing.
Right.
And I wanted to be my band. I wanted to be my band, which was Exciter at the time.
Right.
And him as the singer. That happened again with the singer that was in Journey for a while, Robert Fleischman, who was an unbelievable singer back in the day in the 70s.
Yeah.
Like Paul Rogers, should have been a worldwide phenomenon.
I know.
He was unbelievable, and he knew it.
And then he joined Vinnie Vincent's band.
Yeah, so you know about this guy. He's unbelievable. He wrote the Wheel in the Sky, I think, and When the Lights Go Down.
Yeah, he made great music. I mean, joining Vinnie's band was probably his biggest mistake, but an incredible talent. Absolutely incredible talent.
He wanted to play with me so bad, and I wanted to play with him so bad. But again, I was so dedicated to my group because we had moved down from Northern California, loaded up a rental truck, all moved into this band room without a bathroom or running water that we lived in North Long Beach, and shoplifted, and we had no money, and we'd gone through all this stuff to try to stay together and become this thing. And then this guy comes along, and I'm just like, well, I can't leave my band. And we've got Mick Brown, we've got the bass player. I'm like, great, let's just do that. And you be the singer. And in Robert Fleischman's case, he said, well, I like you, but and he didn't think we were mature enough in our writing, and he was right. He would sit there at rehearsals and just watch us, and we were immature in our writing. And he was,
yeah. But I mean, listen.
So, I've had a couple of, I had one more recently, a band that will go unnamed, but a very, well-known band. Call me up, and it wasn't a hard offer. It was just sort of a
feeler. Hey,
would you be interested if it would happen? Maybe. It's one of those things. But I'm, other than that, no, I've never had the big call.
Gene Simmons never said, "Come and put some makeup on and be the next spaceman."
No.
So that would have been interesting.
Not yet. Yeah, Robert Tate didn't call up and say, "Hey, Jimmy's not going to do this tour, George. Can you fill in?"
Maybe someday. As long as there's hope or whatever, there's always a chance. But again, the Sweet and Lynch, Only to Rise. I've had a chance to listen to it. I really think it's great. The song, boy, I'm just looking at some of these songs here. Heroes of Zero and what was the other one? Time Will Tell, song 4. Those ones really spoke to me. I just think they were great. Really great work. And glad that you're still out there and active. Really, thank you. Thank you for the last 30 or 35 years.
I ain't dead yet.
No, and I'm glad. I'm glad. Just keep making music because... sometimes you get these guys that have been doing it for so long and they just are uninspired and the music is somewhat insipid, and this album isn't. It really is a piece of art. It is well put together, and thank you. It's great.
Well, still got the Infidels, Unimog, and the new Lynch Mob record, and Shadow Train out there for you to listen to once we get those released.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to it. We just need an Exciter reunion.
Oh yeah, okay. I'll get right on that as soon as I hang up with all the guys. Hey, we're getting the band back together.
And bring in Fleischman just to top it off to make it perfect.
There you go.
Thank you, George. It's been a pleasure. Let's do it again after the album's release and you have more tour stuff. Let's do it again in a couple of months and give an update.
I'd love to. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, George.
Have a happy holiday.
You too now. Bye-bye. There you have it, folks. My interview with George Lynch of Lynch Mob. Sun Red Sun is the new album. And, of course, Sweet and Lynch, his collaboration with Stryper's Michael Sweet, called Only to Rise, coming out in January. If you like what you heard, head over to iTunes and leave a rating. A 5-star rating is always appreciated because, of course, the way iTunes works is the more positive reviews, the more they feature the show. And, of course, that's good for everybody. Maor, always a pleasure to have you along. Quickly before we leave, let's just talk once more about the Faith No More Motherfucker single. Did you work only on the single, or were you part of a larger project with more songs? Is there more coming down the road?
This the project that I worked on was specifically a limited edition single that came out on vinyl.
Right.
It was a 7-inch.
What do you call it? The record store day or vinyl day or whatever they call it?
It was the Black Friday of record store day. It was like 2 record store days.
Right.
And so this was specifically a 7-inch, which the first side was the single Motherfucker, and the second side was a remix done by J.G. Thirlwell, who's known as Fetus, or as under his name J.G. Thirlwell. He's more known in the industrial music scene.
Right. And
it was a remix of it. That was basically what I was working on. That was their first release in all that time.
Wow.
Right now, that's the only thing I've done. So that is released now.
Well, let's certainly hope that there's more. I think Faith No More heading out on the road in 2015, or at least that's what I've been told. Some new music to go along with it would certainly be appreciated. If folks want to find you and maybe hire you to do some mastering, where could they find you? Where can they track you down?
Well, they can. I'm very easy to find online. I have a website, www.maorappelbaum.com, and they can also just type my name and find it on Facebook. Maor Appelbaum, MAORAPPELBAUM, or my email, mappelbaum@gmail.com, or a phone number, 818-564-9276. Sometimes my name is spelled wrong on some albums, and it will be spelled like APPLEBAUM, but that's still me.
Right.
So even if you type it wrong, you probably can find online the right place. I just wanted to mention, when you were mentioning about the Faith No More, I was very excited to work on it, not just because of not just because it's a big band, but because I liked what they did there. It's an interesting song. It starts from one place and develops to another place, and it's not like something commercial,
right,
but it's very memorable. Like if you listen to it a few times, it gets stuck in it gets stuck in you. It's just you start singing it, and so it was a pleasure working with them. I really had a good time doing that single, and like I said, that's the only one that I did that was released.
Right.
So
let's hope for more. Let's hope for a lot more. And of course, I'll quickly remind the folks that you can listen to One on One with Mitch Lafon on iTunes, on Spreaker, on Stitcher, on iHeartRadio, on TuneIn. And again, if you like what you hear, subscribe. The podcast will be delivered to you weekly. So there you go. Maor, a pleasure. Let's do this again soon. And thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too now. Bye-bye.